Well, hello and welcome to The Right Hook. I am your host, Steve Hook. It's wonderful to have you with us, TGIF. It is Friday. The weekend is upon us. That doesn't mean the news stops. In fact, we've had a very, very busy news day today. We had a busy news day yesterday and so on and so on. With Trump in office, there's always something to talk about, and we're very happy to talk with you about it today. We remind you can find us, you can find us just about everywhere. Ex-America News, of course, is our big flagship. We also set sail on Rumble and as well as Facebook, among others. So we welcome you wherever you're coming from, wherever you're watching us from. We welcome you to the program today. We've got a big one, man. We really do. As I mentioned, we had some big news, and it's very fortuitous that we booked a very big guest. Robert Spencer is our guest today. Robert is the director of Jihad Watch, a Shillman Fellow at the David Horowitz Freedom Center. He's also the author of, get this, 29 books, including New York Times bestsellers, The Politically Incorrect Guide to Islam, The Truth About Muhammad, and his latest book is Anti-Semitism, History and Myth, and we welcome Robert Spencer to the program now. Mr. Spencer, hello. How are you, Robert? Good to see you.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks. Thanks for having me on. Great to be here.
It's a big day for it today, Robert, because today we had a hostage that a lot of Americans didn't even know was being held by the Taliban. And that's kind of the way these things go, I guess, in this with the news media we have. But a lot of people were unaware that George Glezmann had been held by the Taliban for a long time. Trump secured his release today with the help of some, I guess, the middlemen being in Qatar. Let's listen to what George Glezmann had to say upon landing on the tarmac. First time on U.S. soil in a long time. Here's what he had to say just mere hours ago. Annie, go.
How does it feel to be back on U.S. soil?
I'm amazed. You know, I feel like born again. I have no words. But anyways, I'm in debt with the President Trump. Amazing. You know, thank God he's in the White House where he's at, and thank God he got me out. Marco Rubio, Mike Waltz, Adam Boehler. I'm in debt with everybody that was involved in this situation because they got me home. A free American individual, free from the hands of these people that abducted because of my U.S. passport, basically. And I'm just thankful.
Wow. Yeah, I bet he is thankful. He's thankful for the new administration, no doubt about it. God knows Anthony Blinken wouldn't have done a damn thing. Biden didn't do anything. But Trump, Marco Rubio, he mentioned Mike Waltz in there as well. It didn't take him long. They got him out. What do you have to say about it, Robert? What do you think? I mean, what do we attribute this to, do you suspect?
Oh, Steve, it's 100% the fact that Trump is in the White House, just as Glezmann himself said, because this has been going on for many months. And the Biden administration was in talks with the Taliban to trade one of the last guys at Guantanamo Bay for Glezmann. And the Taliban, knowing who they were dealing with and what they were dealing with, thought we can get more out of Biden than just that. And so they were holding out for more than just one jihad terrorist. That wasn't enough. They wanted an Israeli kind of situation where they trade 1,000 Palestinian jihadis for one civilian hostage, that kind of thing. And so they were looking at that kind of an exchange plus a big payday. When Trump came in, suddenly it all changed. And what's wild about this story, there are many things wild about this story, but one of the best ones is that the Taliban was just taunting Trump and saying, this is just a few days ago, they said, he's not going to do anything. He hasn't even stopped the aid, because a lot of people don't know, probably most Americans don't know, that the Biden administration has sent over $2 billion to the Taliban after the fall of Kabul. I know, it's insane. It's absolutely ridiculous, but it is going on, and apparently it's still going on. They say it's still going on, and I wouldn't be surprised because Trump can't do everything in a day. And even if he orders it to be stopped, some idiot in the State Department could still send it over. And
Yeah.
so they were just making fun of him though, and saying he's weak, he's all talk, he can't do anything. And then suddenly today they get the idea, we're going to release Gelsman for humanitarian reasons. That's what he said. And now, I looked at that clip and I thought, gee, he doesn't look that bad to me. He doesn't look like he may be ill. I hope he's not ill, but he may be ill. But if he is, it's not in any visible way. He doesn't look weak or tired or emaciated or anything.
Yeah.
And so I suspect that for all their talk about how Trump isn't doing anything, they're really actually afraid of him. And so they suddenly gave up their demand that they'd given to Biden. No, we want more than one guy from Gitmo. We want a whole passel of them. Suddenly that's all off the table, and here's your man.
Yeah, no kidding. And not only that, it kind of harkens back to the nighttime flight to the Tehran airport in an unmarked plane with pallets full of cash being offloaded to get 4 hostages released. I mean, they just have a different way of doing things. I suspect Trump probably called them up and said, look, I've got a satellite image of your house, your wife's family's house. And by God, it takes one button to push, and I make all that disappear. I mean, that's what he's done in the past. Do you suspect? It sounds like he was using some middleman based in Qatar. That was these guys were all kind of working together to try and make this happen. How important do you think that relationship is? Because I know that when you start dealing with third parties to get involved here, especially third parties in Qatar. I mean, it could be Yemen, it could be anywhere, but there's maybe some good guys there, but there's a hell of a lot of bad guys. How much faith do you have in these people that helped Trump from Qatar?
About minus 10 degrees. There's just no chance that you're dealing with good faith actors coming out of Qatar. The fact is that this is the country that is the chief sponsor in the world today of the Muslim Brotherhood. And Steve, do you remember a few years back, the Muslim Brotherhood's plan for North America was discovered, and it said the brothers must understand that their work in America is a kind of grand jihad in eliminating and destroying Western civilization from within and sabotaging its miserable house. Qatar is a chief sponsor of the Muslim Brotherhood. Not only that, but they were sheltering the Hamas guys, the chief Hamas leaders, on October 7th. They were in a luxury suite in Qatar, watching on some kind of a video feed the attacks on the Israelis. 1,200 Israelis were killed, and they're there getting down on their knees and thanking Allah for this carnage. And they're doing it with the full protection of the government of Qatar. And so I don't know why Trump continues to deal with these people as intermediaries, but I suspect that the only role that they could have and would have played in getting Gelsman freed from the Taliban was to try to impede efforts and try to make sure that the Taliban got as much as they could possibly get. And that it was much more likely the scenario that you first mentioned, that it was Trump calling up somebody in Kabul and saying, you got a nice house there. You want to keep it tomorrow? Give us this guy back.
Yeah, that's kind of what I suspect too. But I guess, this diplomatic tightrope walk that all administrations, not just Trump, but all have to play. Of course, Biden played it like a fool and they played him like a chump. Same could be said for Obama, frankly. I mean, that Iran deal always, that'll never stop pissing me off.
Yep.
There's so much to discuss. I want to ask you about Mahmoud Khalil. Here's the hero of the day for the left right now. They've circled the wagons around this kid, saying that he's a green card holder. My God, his wife is 8 months pregnant. He's just a poor student who's trying to use his First Amendment rights, blah, 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 blah. He is a mouthpiece for Hamas. He is an anti-Semitic pig. And I've got very little sympathy for him, but how do you think this is going to play out? Will they get him out of this country, Robert Spencer?
I think it's likely that they will, because it's an open and shut case as far as the law is concerned. Now, the corruption is very deep. We know that. The deep state is very powerful. We know that. And so they could prevail and keep this guy in the country. But if they do, it will be in contravention of established immigration law that has not been controversial up to this point. The left has not been agitating and saying, no, you have to allow green card holders to agitate for terrorist groups. Nobody's saying that. And that is a specific rule for green card holders, that they cannot agitate for terrorist groups if they are holders of a green card. So for Mahmoud Khalil to be out there openly pumping up Hamas, and his group is out there putting up stickers, "Death to America," on the Columbia campus, there's really no legal ground that he has to stand on.
Yeah.
And he ought to be shipped out easily.
Well, it's an open and shut case unless some circuit courts or circuit court judge or appellate court judge from Anytown, USA, Bluetown, USA, decides to issue another injunction. Just on a side note, Robert, what do you think about all these injunctions coming against this president to basically slow walk his administration and in some cases flat out just derail it? What do you think about this garbage?
Well, Steve, it's interesting because people are saying, well, Trump is actually wrong here because if a judge says he's got to stop, then he's got to stop. And people are just assuming that this kind of judicial tyranny is actually the way the American system works. And so this is an opportunity that the Trump administration has, and I hope that they will take it to explain and make it clear that some judge on a district court, a low-level judge, does not have the power, does not have the authority. The Constitution nowhere grants the authority to a judge to make policy or impede the policy of the chief executive or to interfere with the executive branch in this way. What this is a misapprehension and a misapplication of the idea of judicial review, which is also actually, and I think this is an important point, not in the Constitution.
Yeah.
But ever since 1803, which is going an awful way back, but it's still not all the way back, and it's not in the Constitution, but in Marbury versus Madison in 1803, the Supreme Court ruled that the Supreme Court had the right to judge whether or not a law passed was constitutional or not. Okay, fair enough. Nobody really has a problem with that. But that's the basis on which these judges are saying, oh, you can't do this. And the idea that they're ruling on constitutional grounds is ridiculous. These guys don't care about the Constitution.
Yeah.
They only care that they were appointed by Obama or Biden, and they want to be faithful to the people who brought them there. And so they are enacting their agenda from the bench. That is not judicial review. That has nothing to do with the Constitution. And Trump is right to call them out about it.
Yeah, it's not judicial review, it's judicial activism. And not only that, and you mentioned the constitutionality of all of this, Robert. Hell, the district courts aren't even mentioned in the Constitution, much less appellate courts. And yet these are the people that are doing it. They're just kind of saying, and you know what's going on here? Judge shopping is going on here.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, every NGO and their mother's uncle's cousin is on the phone with these NGOs and these appellate and district court judges trying to file petition against this president. That's why I guess Trump came out yesterday and kind of very forcefully told the SCOTUS, hey, it's time you guys to get off your asses and rule on this because this is going to be a nonstop parade of, just fictitious garbage coming down the pike. Okay. I asked Danny because Robert, I got to tell you, in show prepping for today's show, I watched so many videos with you in it. I feel like I know you, and I've just met you for the first time. I've read some of your stuff over the years, obviously, but it was really enlightening. And I said, you know what, Annie, let's just free throw it. Just give me whatever you got, and we'll go at it with Robert. So, Annie, if you will, give us something to talk about. There you go. Another pro-Hamas student faces deportation. So here's this is going to be in not only Mahmoud Khalil, but now we've got this new guy. His name is Badar Khan Suri. He's an Indian national at Georgetown University for having ties to the terrorist group Hamas. Gee, imagine that. What do you know about this fella? And are we going to be looking at basically the same scenario that's playing out right now with Mahmoud Khalil?
Yeah, it's going to be 100% the same scenario, and that's why you're absolutely right that the Supreme Court has to settle this and make it very clear one way or the other, and then we'll proceed. Otherwise, every last one of these things is going to play out the same way. But this is another bad actor. There's really no question about it, any more than there is with Mahmoud Khalil. Badar Khan Suri works for the Al Walid Center of Muslim Christian Understanding. It sounds great, a Muslim Christian understanding. Who could possibly object? Well, it's actually it is funded. It's called the Al Walid Center because Al Walid bin Talal is a Saudi prince who has been behind the funding of all manner of groups. It's not outright funding for terrorism, but it is funding of groups that enable the jihad terrorists excuse me, and work against those who are fighting against them, like the Council on American Islamic Relations in the United States, groups like that. And the Al Walid bin Talal Center for Muslim Christian Understanding at Georgetown University is dedicated to fooling Americans into thinking, oh, Islam is completely benign, a religion of peace. We've got nothing to be concerned about it. And anybody who thinks we do is a racist, bigoted Islamophobe, and they're the real problem. And that's what that enterprise is all about. So it's actually actively enabling the jihad by fostering complacency among Americans and trying to discredit those who are resisting the jihad. And so this guy, once again, has every reason to be deported. But it's funny how, both with him and Mahmoud Khalil, Steve, the left just loves people who hate America.
Yeah.
And that goes back decades. You remember Alger Hiss, the communist spy.
There you go.
A big hero on the left for decades. And they kept insisting he was innocent. And even after the Soviet files were opened and it was proven that he was a communist spy, he still had defenders on the left. And that's just the way the left operates. And if you want to get the left support, just go out into some city square or something, or a college campus, shout death to America, and you're in.
Wow, it's pretty sad state of affairs. And you're right. The more things change, the more they stay the same on the left. My guest today is Robert Spencer. We're going to take a quick break, Robert. We'll come back. We've got a lot more to talk about. I want to talk about just the absolute unraveling of the United Kingdom and how that's playing out. And we'll get into it. Like I said, Andy's going to surprise us. My guest today is the most hated man in the world by the most evil people in the world. It's Robert Spencer of Jihad Watch. You're right. You're watching The Right Hook. I am Steve Hook, and we will be back right after this.
You're still looking good.
I'm still feeling good. I've got all your MyPillow products. Mattress topper, bed sheets, MyPillows, towels, slippers, blankets.
I'm interrupting this commercial to do something I've never done before. Get 2 MyPillows absolutely free on orders of $100 or more. I can't do this forever, so get on board with this great sale today. Our best-selling 6-piece bath towel sets or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Our famous standard MyPillows only $14.98. Queens $18.98. King size only $1 more. Body pillows $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bedsheet sets. Any size, any color. So go to MyPillow.com or call that number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And when you spend $100 or more, get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.
Well, there you go. From battling his own adversity to starting an absolute sleep empire, it's Mike Lindell. He is the very definition of perseverance. We invite you to make sure that you take advantage of that deal. 2 free standard MyPillows if you order $100 or more. And of course, if you use the promo code HOOK, you save up to 80% on all products on either MyPillow.com or MyStore.com. Just call 1-800-749-7098. That's 1-800-749-7098. Use the promo code HOOK and get some incredible deals and get some incredible sleep stuff like pillows and slippers and sheets and whatnot. Okay, we are back with Robert Spencer. Okay, Robert, Annie, let's just go to another clip. And then I want to talk about the UK, but let's see what Annie's got loaded up for us here, Robert. Okay, Hamas-linked CAIR got over $7,200,000 in taxpayer money. Boy, oh boy, none of this comes as a big shock, I guess, to you, Robert. But to many Americans, you see this stuff and you're like, what in the ever loving hell are we sending these people that want us all dead money for? And the only answer I can come up with is the insanity of the left. And you kind of touched on it before the break. If you hate America, they love you on the left. It's really, really bizarre. And I'm only shocked that the Democrat approval rating is still sitting as high as 27%, according to CNN last week. So what do you make of this? Why are we sending this kind of money? You mentioned we were sending aid to the Taliban after leaving $87 billion worth of up-armored vehicles and weaponry. Then we decide, well, maybe you need a few more billion. And now we're sending millions to Hamas. What the heck is going on here, Robert?
Well, the Council on American-Islamic Relations is indeed a front group for Hamas, essentially. They were founded by a couple of guys out of the Islamic Association for Palestine, Nihad Awad and Omar Ahmad. And the Islamic Association for Palestine has now been shut down as a Hamas front. And they were caught on surveillance audio talking about the need for there to be an organization that presented a moderate front, but was actually forwarding Hamas's agenda in the United States. And that's the Council on American-Islamic Relations. It was named an unindicted co-conspirator in the Holy Land Foundation trial in the early 2000s. The Holy Land Foundation, you may remember, Steve, was the largest Islamic charity in the United States. And it was put on trial and ultimately shut down because it turned out it was taking charitable contributions and sending them to Hamas. And this was very cynical because not only were they sending charitable contributions to Hamas, they were collecting money labeled as being for the victims of the 9/11 attacks. And so people would give them money thinking, I'm helping out the families of people who got killed on 9/11 or people who were wounded on 9/11, and the money was going to Hamas.
Yeah, going to the very people that, the very type of people that committed 9/11.
Yeah.
And CAIR, I remember old Ibrahim Hooper when he was involved with that organization.
Yeah, he's still there.
Oh, is he still there? Okay, well, good. Yeah, he belongs together. He belongs with the rest of those snakes. You know, they kind of got the gold glove treatment with certainly with Obama. I guess Biden to an extent, although I didn't hear about it as much. But you know, you've got people in the Obama White House that were certainly willing and able to hear CAIR and treat them as if they were just normal, proud Americans standing up for the Muslim faith. It's anything but that. Am I wrong, Robert?
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, you're talking about they were named by the Justice Department an unindicted co-conspirator in that Holy Land Foundation trial. And then you've got the same Justice Department and all these other government agencies reaching out to them, buying them lunch, having talks with them, asking them for advice as if they were not tied up with Hamas. And with the Biden administration, they're trying to court the Muslim vote. That's very clear. But when you've got bureaucrats who are going to be there, administrations come and go, and the bureaucrats stay the same, then you got to wonder what madness has overtaken these people that they're dealing with people who are linked to Hamas. And yet the CAIR has extraordinary influence in the government. The $7 million is just the latest indication of many of how much they have deeply embedded themselves in all levels of the U.S. government and are wielding influence as a result.
Yeah, it's going to take a lot more than 4 years of Trump to get rid of some of these snakes. I suspect that Trump is going to do a pretty bang-up job on getting them on the radar, so people will be looking at them, and hopefully we'll get J.D. Vance in there, or like another good conservative that'll root these people out. I just don't see how you can have a representative republic when you've got people like this that want the exact opposite of that. And of course, we need not look any further than England to see where this can go. Actually, we can look at Sweden. Sweden is now the rape capital of Europe, thanks to Angela Merkel and her pals over in the EU. They've really destroyed themselves, and England is in the process with Keir Starmer of doing the same thing, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've got, you know what they call him, two-tier CAIR, because he takes English citizens who are just agitating. They were protesting against the mass migration policies, and they were chanting, "Who the F is Allah?" And that got them in prison. And yet, at the same time, he gives these suspended sentences and no jail time at all to Muslim rapists, Muslim killers, all kinds of unsavory individuals. And this is why it's widely complained in Britain. There's a two-tier justice system, and it's the natives who are suffering at the expense of the migrants. It's very clear that the Labour government is favoring the migrants.
I mean, I can't wrap my head around their thought process at all. I remember that video that went about, Robert, about a month or so ago of a woman silently praying in London. And she was arrested. I guess it was near an abortion center or something. And she was arrested for silently praying. Meanwhile, if you bring up the fact that, hey, guess what? There's no-go zones in parts of London and Manchester and whatnot. And if you go there and it's, God forbid, you wear a yarmulke, you're definitely looking for trouble. But essentially, just don't go there. And by the way, don't talk about it either, or else we might come knocking on your door and arrest you. It's bizarro world. It's dystopian.
Yeah, that's right. And it's all by design. None of this would be happening except that successive governments in Britain, they have wanted this situation. For whatever reason, maybe they thought, like the Biden people did, that they could bring in all these migrants and they would vote for them. Maybe that was it. Or maybe they thought that they owed it to them because these are from former British colonies. Whatever may have been the motivation, they have now inundated the country with Muslim migrants, mostly from Central Asia, from Pakistan, and they're going to be a majority in another generation or two. They are already, as you noted, establishing no-go zones, establishing Sharia courts, and asserting more and more authority in the country until finally, of course, the whole thing will be an Islamic State. None of this had to happen. None of this was necessary. It's not like they lost a war. They didn't even fight a war. They just invited these people in, not realizing that they were supremacists, the adherents of an aggressive, intolerant, radical, and violent ideology, and now they're just rolling over and surrendering to them. So when Britain is declared an Islamic State, you can say, well, Spencer predicted it.
Yeah, yeah. Good. Lundistan. It's right around the corner. I was even reading on Jihad Watch, which is a wonderful website, jihadwatch.org. Robert, your team put together a piece about how Stratford-upon-Avon. Now, for those of you who know anything about Shakespeare, you will know Stratford-upon-Avon is the home of the bard. It's where he was born. And now there's an effort to, quote unquote, decolonize Stratford-upon-Avon. Can you make that make sense to me, Robert?
I wish I could, Steve, but it doesn't make any sense because, of course, Stratford-upon-Avon has not been colonized. It's the same people living there. I was just talking about Britain having a Muslim majority before too long, and that is true. But at Stratford-upon-Avon right now, it's still, I think, 75, 80, 85%, maybe 90% native English people who've been there 1,000 years. What are they talking about? The Norman conquest? Who colonized Stratford-upon-Avon? Obviously, what they're really doing is trying to make the native British people feel as if they don't even have legitimacy in their own home.
Yeah.
And the whole idea is to make them be sorry that they're there, be ashamed of their own history and culture, of which Shakespeare is such a big part, and then they will be easier to defeat because nobody's going to defend a culture that they don't value, a nation that they think is just an exponent of racism and hatred and so on.
Yeah, I tell you what, and you know what, Robert Spencer, these leftist clowns act the same no matter what country they're in. They're doing the same thing here. I mean, you go out west, you're like, you're living on conquer or on stolen land and all this. They do it everywhere. And you go back to the Norman conquest. What was that, in the 1000s, I think, the Norman conquest? Yep. So, I oftentimes try and put myself in the mind of these people, and that's a very dangerous game to play because you will really lose yourself if you try and figure out what they're thinking. But it's a lot of, well, good God, it's been this way a long time, I guess, but it's really ramped up. It's liberal white guilt. I
Mhm.
don't give a damn if it's in New York City, LA, San Francisco, or if it's in Davos, or if it's in Berlin, or if it's in London, or if it's in Dublin. They're just all the same.
Yeah. And it all goes back to the idea that really the non-white, non-Christian, non-Western people are superior. And so it's funny how it got an entree into Britain and America and the West in general on the basis of fighting racism and saying that the people from other parts of the world, they're just as good as we are, which of course, yeah, that's obvious. But the fact that the British people now are surrendering, and so much of the left is counseling that kind of surrender in other countries, it really comes from an unspoken assumption that the other people coming in, they're better. And so they're racist in reverse, you know.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
haven't really rejected racism, they've embraced it. They've just made themselves the inferior race.
So they've embraced supremacy, just not their supremacy. They must be
Yeah.
suppressed. Uh, Unbelievable. Well, and Robert, as you're telling me this, I can't help but think about what's happening in Germany. ADF just recently lost, but barely. They're picking up steam. And not only are they picking up steam, but they're picking up steam from the youth of Germany. And of course, we've seen what's happened in South and Central America. All of a sudden, a resurgence of, I guess, we can thank Milei for a lot of that. Milei, of course, thanks Trump for a lot of that, but it's happening in El Salvador. So parts of the world that used to be very left, Marxist left, are starting to reject all of that and re-embrace freedom. And parts of the world that have always known freedom are rejecting freedom and embracing liberal white guilt. Is that about it?
Yeah, it's true. And it's encouraging anyway, because I remember just a few years ago, I saw a map of South America that listed all the authoritarian leftist regimes, neo-Marxist regimes, like Maduro, and the whole continent looked like it was about to tip over that way. And now Milei has completely changed the game, and so has Nayib Bukele in El Salvador. And so it's extraordinary, really. It's kind of testimony to the fact that the human spirit can't really be kept down forever. And this is important because things looked so bleak, Steve, just a few years ago during the Biden administration. And I remember talking to friends, and they would be telling me about something, the World Economic Forum saying we're going to forbid air travel and get everybody to live in these 15-minute cities where everything is going to be all contained in one area, and you won't be allowed to leave it for the climate, to prevent alleged climate change and so on. And it all seemed like everything was going that way. The Western European governments, Biden, Canada, everybody was on board with all this nonsense. And it looked like and everybody's restricting the freedom of speech and demanding that Elon Musk knuckle down and restrict it on Twitter X. And it looked like it looks as if it looked to me a few years ago as if we had lived through an era of freedom and now it was closing up and the world was going into a dark night of totalitarianism. And now already it seems to be breaking apart. And so it's a glorious time to be alive, really. It's very exciting.
Well, if the old adage is true, it's always darkest before the dawn. We are now living on the dawn of, according to Trump, the golden age of America. And good God, With any luck, the golden age for the rest of the world, although I've got my doubts for the UK right about now.
Yeah.
Ireland is going through this crap too. The EU better get their act together, but we shall see. We've got to take a short break, and then we're going to pull some more of your clips from Jihad Watch and go over those. My guest is Robert Spencer. You're watching The Right Hook with Steve Hook, and we'll be right back after this.
Well, hello everybody, it's Annie Cyrus. Welcome to my art studio where all the magic happens. This is the station for painting, and that is the station for all the resin art I do. If you want to check out my art, all you gotta do is go to lutfstudio.com. Finish this painting, but I'm sure, for at least I hope, I'll see you at lutfstudio.com.
And there she is. Not only is she a producer extraordinaire, Annie Cyrus is also a wonderful artist. Go check out her work, LUTF Studio. And again, I always remind you, LUTF, the way you remember that, live up to freedom. LUTFstudio.com, handcrafted with meaning, rooted in the Christian faith, American values, patriotism. LUTF Studios artwork is designed to uplift, inspire, and really kind of let you, celebrate what matters most, right? And then, like I've said so many times before, you can point to that at your next cocktail party, say, that's an Annie Cyrus original, and people will be so impressed. So go check it out, lutfstudio.com. And by the way, remember to use the promo code RIGHTHOOK, and Annie will give you a discount on one-of-a-kind pieces of art at lutfstudio.com. Okay, we're back again with Robert Spencer. Robert, thank you for hanging in there, my friend.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, let's have the aforementioned Annie throw us something, and then we will talk about it. Let's see what you got, Annie. Okay, Iran Khamenei calls for protesters in Europe, U.S. Europe to stop Israeli military in Gaza. Gee, this doesn't come as a shock. Khamenei, I gotta think. We know that what's happening in Iran right now is the mullahs don't like it much, do they, Robert? It looks like the people in Iran, most of the Iranians are pretty much pro-West. And Khamenei is just fighting for all it's worth to stay in power. So he's calling for jihad. He's calling for protest. He really wants to stop all this. But just how firm of a vice grip do the mullahs still have in Iran? And is it beginning to slip?
Oh, it's very much slipping. As a matter of fact, Steve, I think that the Iranian Islamic regime would already have been gone if it hadn't been for Joe Biden and Barack Obama. But I think didn't you mention earlier the pallets of cash in the dark of night flown to Tehran by Barack Obama, billions of dollars in unmarked bills? What was that all about? I mean, what's the deal with having it be untraceable cash? And that's never been adequately answered. And then you have Joe Biden. And not many people know this. I was appalled at how much this was not reported in the American press. I'm used to the American media being a propaganda arm for the left, but this was really over the top, that they ignored the fact that after the October 7th attacks, not before, but after, Biden unfroze $10 billion in frozen funds and then did it again. So they got at least $20 billion from Joe Biden after October 7th. So in other words, Biden, the United States of America, was funding the war against Israel while ostensibly being on Israel's side.
Unbelievable.
And if it weren't for that money, I don't think that the Iranian regime would have survived. The people in Iran hate it. There was an amazing survey about a year or so ago, Steve. Officially, if you go to Wikipedia or CIA or wherever, you will find it says Iran is 99% 12er Shiite Muslim. Okay, but there was a survey a year or so ago of Iranians, and they asked them, "What's your real religious views?" And only 40% said that they were Muslims at all.
I'll be
And
damned.
yeah, it's amazing. And that means that massive numbers of Iranians are so disgusted with Islam after 40 years of the Islamic Republic, they've left the religion altogether.
Yeah, and I remember well when the Green Revolution started in Iran back during Obama's term, and he basically said, "Why don't you guys just shut up and go back home, and let the mullahs handle it?" I mean, Valerie Jarrett was in the room for that. No doubt Susan Rice was in there, giving him the sharp elbow on that. And I think Obama is an apologist for radical Islam, even without Jarrett and Rice. But that is a trifecta of just Islamic and a love fest going on there in the Oval Office during those years.
No doubt about it. And the thing about Iran is Obama seemed to have the idea that it could be the successor to Iraq as the foremost power, the stabilizing power in the Middle East. Not many people know this now because all we know about Saddam Hussein, for the most part, is that he was this terrible dictator and tyrant, and the Americans removed him in the war. Okay. But the fact is that for years before that, Saddam Hussein's Iraq was indeed the stabilizing factor in that area of the world. That's how the US State Department treated it, the European Union, and so on. When Saddam Hussein was toppled, the ISIS took advantage. It became a source of tremendous instability. So the Obama people had this big idea: we will empower Iran to become the stabilizing force in the region. Now, the big fallacy of that is Iran has no interest in stabilizing. Iran just wants to destroy Israel. And secondarily, to take control over the entire Islamic world, which probably would mean engaging some of the Sunni states in conflict and defeating them as well. And so this is just the opposite of a stabilizing force. But the Obama people have been so wedded to this that the money keeps flowing to Tehran and keeping that regime afloat.
I mean, it is absolutely bizarre. Look, I'm no expert in what's going on over there, but you don't have to be to realize that nobody around Iran wants them to be a hegemon in that region at all. The Saudis, in particular, are up in arms about it. Jordanians don't want it. Egypt doesn't. Nobody wants it. But Obama wanted it. And Biden just kind of went along and said, well, just whenever my auto pen signs, it signs. We'll go with that. Do they need more cash? What do they need? I mean, let me just ask you this, Robert. Given the difference in foreign policy that the Trump administration brings to the fore here, do you think, you said that you thought that they were, and they were, God knows they were almost bankrupt when he left, very close. Had he won that election, which is another topic for another day, but I don't think we'd be having this conversation right now. But if Trump proceeds to treat Iran like he did in the first term, where do you think we go from here? Is the Green Revolution going to get back up and running? Is U.S. going to help them? What do you think?
Yeah, I think that if the money gets turned off, and if Trump can also persuade the EU, which would be it's going to be tougher because the European Union loves the Islamic Republic. But if Trump can manage to persuade the European Union to not shower any billions on Iran either, then this regime could fall. The people in Iran hate it. They're very ruthless about crushing any opposition. But at a certain point, if it reaches critical mass, there won't be anything they can do. And the Crown Prince, the son of the toppled Shah from 1979, Reza Pahlavi, the Crown Prince, he has said he's ready to go back to Tehran to head up an interim government after the Islamic Republic is gone. This could happen within this term of the presidency in the U.S.
Wow. I mean, that would just be amazing. And, I mean, before it would have been unthinkable, but so much has changed in just under 3 months. This administration is turning a lot of things over completely just flipping over the cart there. We'll see if it happens. I'm curious. You had mentioned the EU just then, and before we went to our last break, I was talking about what's happening in Germany, and we're starting to see this. It's really taking off with the youth. TikTok videos are becoming all the rage, and what these kids in Germany are bitching about, rightly so, I would say, is they are losing their national identity. They're losing their culture. They're, as we talked about earlier in the program, they have been told over and over again their culture is bad. They've got to give it up. Now, I kind of get where Germany's coming from, given their recent culture going back about 80 years. But these kids realize that, hey, what you're trying to do here is destroy our country. Is that going to be do you think that could have a domino effect inside Europe?
Oh, no doubt about it. And this is one of the reasons why the European elites are so worried about all these different forces in different countries that are saying, enough of this. We've got to end the mass migration. We've got to stand up for our national identity and culture. And you see everywhere there's a party that does this, the other parties cordon it off. They refuse to cooperate with it. They call them Nazis, and they say, we're not going to have anything to do with these people. And so you look at Germany, and it was with the AfD. They said exactly that if the AfD wins the election, we're not going to join their government. We're not going to join any coalitions. And, in Europe, there's every country has not just two parties, but 10 or 12. Every government is by a coalition. And so when they were saying we won't join a coalition with the AfD, they were saying these people will never be in power. Same thing in Sweden with the Sweden Democrats. Same thing in Netherlands with Geert Wilders. Same thing in France with Marine Le Pen. And it's because they know if any one of these countries becomes ruled by one of these populists, one of these nationalists who is willing to stand up for the country's historical integrity and end the migrant invasion and engage even in deportations of illegal migrants. If you get even one that does that, the others will fall like dominoes, absolutely, because the people hate what's going on. They've just been thoroughly disenfranchised and left with no choice but to accept it. These are essentially, even though they are under the guise of republics, they are essentially authoritarian governments that are bent on enforcing the leftist rule and making sure that these patriotic parties can't get into power.
Yeah, it's pretty sickening. I got to tell you, Robert, I was in Amsterdam just not even a year ago, and there's a square there in the middle of in the center of the city, and they were these guys talking. It was the most vile, anti-Israel, anti-Jew crap coming out of their mouths. And I'm like, oh my God, what is going on? And then, of course, just a couple of months later, some Jewish soccer fans got attacked over there. So it's a real problem in Europe, and it's good to see. Look, they do say that AfD is all about Nazism. No, it's not. But if it's not full tilt boogie hard left, then it's Nazi. And of course, we see that here. Hitler is Trump is not is Hitler. Elon Musk is Hitler. Rubio is Hitler. You're Hitler. I'm Hitler. Everybody's Hitler. It's just nonsense. Let's do one more story from jihadwatch.org. Annie, hit us with it. Front Page Magazine this time around, Robert.
Oh, yeah.
Here we go. California Dems offer prayer to a strange new god to open assembly session. So, are you sure this isn't the Babylon Bee, Annie?
Yeah, I thought it was a joke myself, but it's absolutely real. There's the video. You can watch it. Tara McKinnon, who is a member of the California State Assembly, was given the responsibility to open a session with prayer last week or so, and she opened it by reading Beyonce lyrics. And I mean, she meant this as a prayer. She said, "Let us pray," and then she starts spouting all this Beyonce stuff. And so I thought, the Democrats, they've had a hard time lately. They lost the presidential election, the House, the Senate. People think they're too far out. all the business about men becoming women and all that. It was very clear. The American people don't like it. It's receding now in the culture. And now, so what do they think to do? Instead of thinking, yeah, we should become more normal, they think, hey, let's have prayers to Beyonce.
They've deified Beyonce, for
Yep.
God's sake. I mean, just it's almost as if I know it's not, and that's what makes it sad. But I was going to say it's almost as if they're all just saying, "Let's get together, come up with the craziest bat crap crazy thing in the world, put it out there on full blast just to watch everybody go nuts." But they're deadly serious about this. I mean, I'm not saying they really worship Beyonce, but what they're doing in worshiping Beyonce is basically saying your Judeo-Christian values mean nothing to us. We'd rather talk about Beyonce and whatever the hell her husband's name is. I don't know. I don't keep up with it, but Jay-Z. Jay-Z, there it is. So we'd rather deify these two than even acknowledge, Judaism or Christianity. It's really bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, there's nothing more bizarre than the Democrat Party of 2025. And it seems as if they've just decided, okay, we lost everything because we were so weird. Let's get weirder.
You're not wrong. I mean, I've even seen people on X say that the next ticket should be AOC and Jasmine Crockett. And I'm just going, yes, please, good God, let that be the next ticket.
Oh, it could very well happen. Absolutely.
Could you imagine? I mean, you saw those polls last week. I think it was CNN was 27% approval rating, MSNBC or NBC rather, I think was 29. And they're swirling the bowl. I mean, I don't understand what the heck they're thinking, but God, I don't know. Well, Robert, listen, man, I want to thank you so much for coming on. This has been a real treat. Everybody, I would encourage you, if you really want to get your first cup of coffee tomorrow morning, go to jihadwatch.org. Hell, go there now for that matter. But it's a great website. It keeps you abreast of what a lot of stuff in the media they will never tell you about. But Robert Spencer and his whole crew over there are not afraid to tell you the truth about what's really happening in the world of jihad. Robert Spencer, God bless you. Please stay safe, man. I hope we can have you back on again one day soon.
Call me anytime, Steve. It was a lot of fun talking to you.
You got it, my friend. You have a wonderful day. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
All right. Well, there he goes. That's Robert Spencer. That was absolutely wonderful, wasn't it? I mean, he's just a great, I mean it. Go to that website, jihadwatch.com. You will be amazed at some of these stories. Some are kind of like that Beyonce story. You can't believe it's real until you actually kind of dig in and you realize that they are bat crap crazy. But you're not. You're here watching The Right Hook. And we remind you every Wednesday and Friday, we do this, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Follow us. By the way, we have a brand new Facebook page, Ex America News on Facebook. Just put that in your search bar on Facebook and follow us. Why don't you? And that way, when the show does come on live, and any of our great shows on Ex America News, you can get a notification and bam, you're up and watching it in no time. We're doing what the media used to do, but we're doing it better with your help. I'm Steve Hook. Thank you for watching The Right Hook. Until next Wednesday, have a wonderful weekend. Goodbye.